everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got another offering from Kahr Arms. It's the Kahr CW45. It's a single stack 45, kind of targeting the concealed carry market, and I'll show you a few things about it. First we'll get rid of this, pop the magazine, and I'll show you that it is unloaded. Okay, so as I mentioned, it is a single stack gun. So it is relatively thin. It comes in at 1.01 inches. So it's a very narrow little gun. It's 6.32 inches from front to back, and it's 4.8 inches top to bottom. So it's not a super small gun, but again it is a 45 ACP, but it's definitely well within the territory you could do for concealed carry. The barrel is short enough to fit into most inside the waistband holsters that you might want without biting into your leg. And the grip, though a little bit longer than some concealed carry 45s, isn't excessively long, and it's still easily hidden. A few of the features the gun has: it is a DAO trigger, but it is a striker gun, so it's a DAO striker. It is drop safe. It does not have a magazine disconnect, so you don't have to worry about the hassles associated with those. The trigger on it, despite being a DAO, it's a little bit on the heavier side, but it's not unreasonable. It's exceptionally smooth. So I'll show you the gun's unloaded. I'll show you the trigger. There's minimal take up, and then as I'm pulling back, it's super smooth, and there's the brake. From a reset perspective, the reset is all the way out, as you might expect with the DAO gun. Now, you can see there was very little take up after the reset. And again, I'll show as I pull it, it's nice and smooth. A little bit of stacking, gets a little bit heavier at the end, but not significantly enough to make a difference. One of the things you'll find with the trigger on this gun, it's very easy to keep this gun on the target you're aiming at through the entire trigger stroke, which a lot of the concealed carry DAOs have a hard enough trigger that as you're pulling it, you have a tendency to move your finger and twist the gun. You won't encounter that with this. You'll be able to keep it right on where you're trying to aim as you go through the trigger stroke. It does have bar dot sights, which are actually quite clear and relatively easy to see and use. The rear sight is dovetail adjustable as well for windage as well as replaceable, and the front sight is pinned. It can be replaced by accessing it from underneath, but there's no adjustability on the front sight. The etching is roll marked, and it is contoured at the front to improve the ability to holster it easily. And one thing you'll notice on the gun, with the exception of the takedown lever, there's very little sticking out on this gun. It's very smooth and deburred, designed to be able to be carried easily and holstered easily. The grip has a little bit of stippling on the front, which is somewhat aggressive, but when you're holding onto it, it doesn't hurt your hands, but it does allow you to actually get a good solid grip on it, as well as on the back. The sides are stippled, but it's more decorative than anything. It's relatively smooth. It comes with a 6-round factory magazine, which fits pretty flush when it's installed. And Kahr does make some 7-round magazines that will fit it. The magazines are very nice magazines. They're folded steel, but they're very smooth, they're stainless, and very well built. They don't hang up, the followers operate very smooth, and they do have witness holes. Now, one of the things that we had seen on the internet is that standard 1911 magazines would work in it, and we found that to be partially true. This is a Wilson Combat magazine, and this does work flawlessly in a 1911 that we have. And when we had this out at the range, we had it out one day with one brand of ammo, and it ran fine. So okay, perfect, this thing's going to work great. We took it out another day with a different ammo. I think we had Perfecta the second time, and it hung up continuously. We ended up abandoning trying to use this magazine. We also tried using a Springfield 1911 magazine that works perfectly in the Springfield, and the follower is kind of a bent metal piece on that magazine, and the follower would hang up on the gun and actually jam the action. So your mileage may vary trying to use 1911 magazines in this gun. However, with the factory magazine in it, it ran flawlessly. So there isn't an issue with the performance of the gun. There just may be some issues depending on which ammo you're using and which brand 1911 magazine you choose to substitute for the factory magazine. So if you're going to use this for defense purpose, concealed carry, things like that, stick with the factory magazines. It will work 100% of the time. Now from a standpoint of shooting it, we did find it a bit challenging to shoot this gun well. The grip is relatively thin, and with the stippling you can get a good grip on it, but the length of the 45 cartridge and the shape of the grip kind of resulted in a difficulty getting a proper shooting grip on it. And when I was shooting it, one of the things I noticed is that the beaver tail sits right on this knuckle of my thumb, and every time I pulled the trigger it would give me a whack right there. And when I was done, you can see I'd see a little bit of pressure spot where I had it up against it. But when I was done, I'd have a red spot there. So I found it a little unpleasant to shoot because it kept smacking me on the thumb. Now Hammer's got larger hands than I do. He didn't have that problem with it, but he's still probably likely to put a grip sleeve on this to make the grip a little bit bigger. So you may find that depending on how your hands fit and your shooting position, it may be a little difficult to get a good proper grip on this, and that resulted in us having a little more of a hard time getting the kind of groups we like. When we got a proper grip on it, we got the grip the way we wanted, we could pull nice tight groups with it. So the gun's capable of it. It's just a matter of getting it to work with your hands. I kind of wish that it had the replaceable back straps. That would have really been perfect to be able to customize it. But without that, you're probably looking at something like a Hogue grip sleeve. From a quality perspective, it's a stainless steel slide, and all of the Kahr pistols are very well constructed. They're high quality guns, they're reliable, they're durable. So if you choose to get this gun, you are not going to have problems with it from that perspective. It's relatively easy to take down. Let me show you how that's done. Unloaded. What you have to do is there's two notches, one on the slide and one on the frame, right there by my thumb. Actually, I'm sorry, it's right there. And you have to line them up and then push this pin out, and you'll see there's a half moon cutout right there under my finger that allows it to come out. And you push it out from the other side, right behind my finger there. Easiest way I found to do this, of course, is once you've determined that it is unloaded, is put your thumb through the trigger housing, and then you can very easily position it and hold it while you flip the gun over and use something like this plastic pick to push the pin out without scratching it. And one of the things I found with these Kahr guns is after you've cycled them a few times, you can actually push it with your finger and it'll pop out enough that you can grab it. But when they're really new, they're a little bit stiffer and harder to do. The only other thing you have to do is you'll generally have to let it down slowly to the point where it's almost in battery and then pull the trigger. If you don't do that, you're going to fight with it. You're going to have a hard time getting it to separate. In the manual, they don't tell you you have to pull the trigger, and I'm sure if you wiggle it just right, you can get around that. But I found that if you bring it down to the point where it's just in battery, pull the trigger, it'll slide right apart without any hassles. I'll show you the frame a little bit. Frame it's all polymer, and it has steel inserts for the guide at the back. And of course you have the trigger mechanism down in here. And it's a little unique on this gun is that you have these little internal rails here. And by the way, this little notch here isn't a defect. It's on every one of the rails on this side of the cars that I've seen. And these little steel rails ride in a groove right here, which you can see in the front of the slide. So that's your forward guides. And then, of course, the rear guides are these little steel inserts. So it's kind of a unique design from what you're used to seeing in these polymer pistols. Now we'll talk about the slide itself. And as I mentioned earlier, it is stainless steel. There's your drop safety mechanism, so it is drop safe. And then there's your striker catch, which is the other half of the sear. To disassemble it, pull the recoil and the guide rod and the recoil spring off, and you'll notice that it is non-captive, so you do have to make sure you have a hold of it when you pull it out. And the spring has two sides. It has a side that's kind of finished looking, and it has a side that's just open. The finished looking side goes towards the barrel, like that, and the open side is what you'll put into the front of the slide. And I'll show you that when I put it back together. And then you have the 3.64 inch barrel. And a couple of things you're going to notice that's unique about this. One is that it is highly polished. But the other is that the feed ramp is narrow and it's offset. And that's part of one of the things that they do at Kahr to make their guns narrower, is they offset so that the trigger bar actually sets up inside of the gap here and allows them to make the gun a little bit thinner by not having that trigger bar stick out. And it also gives you a bit of a lower bore axis by being able to bring the barrel down further into the frame without having interference with the trigger bar components. Now you might think that with having an odd shaped feed ramp like this that it would be prone to malfunction, and we haven't seen that with any of the Kahrs we've had. This design actually works, and it works well, and gives you those benefits of the narrower gun and the lower bore axis. So I'll let you look at the barrel from the side. And of course we've got a video on the P380, which uses this exact same design, it's just smaller, and that one's been quite reliable. So let me go ahead and put this back together. One of the things I will note, by the way, is that this feed ramp has worked flawlessly with every ammo we've tried. On the P380 that I mentioned, that's significantly narrower, because overall you've got a smaller gun. That one did have a little bit of ammo sensitivity in that it didn't like flat-nose 380. But with 45 you have kind of a more significant consistency of the ammo types, and everything we've tried it ate flawlessly. Putting it back together is fairly easy. Drop this in, drop the barrel in, take the recoil spring assembly. Now the one thing that you've got to watch for is if you're putting it back together, the front of this spring, if you don't do it quite right, may have a tendency to poke through the front. And if that happens, it won't go together correctly. It doesn't damage anything, you'll just have to pop it back out. And then you just push the guide rod forward and get it through the hole, and you just I kind of rocked it with my finger as I went forward, and then snap it down into the barrel and just kind of give it a little push to make sure it's centered. Now I have the frame, or I'm sorry, the slide back together. Putting it back on the frame is relatively easy, but it is a two-step process. First off, you line the guides up at the back, and then of course as you pull it back you're going to line the guides up at the front. Now what you need to do is pull it back a little bit until you can clearly see, and it's going to maybe hard to demonstrate this, you see my hand through the hole. At this point you want to drop the pin through, and you can let it hang down, but what you're wanting to do is capture the barrel. If you try to bring it all the way back, the barrel lug is going to go back behind it and you're not going to be able to catch it. And then pull it back till the points line up, and then flip this up, being careful not to flip it too far or to have it up against the frame. The infamous 1911 idiot scratch is possible with this if you don't have it quite right. Snap it into place, let go, and you're operational. So from a maintenance standpoint, relatively easy to maintain. A little bit different than a few others, but not convoluted and not difficult. From a performance perspective, it's been a flawless performer. From a shooting perspective, it can be a little more challenging to learn how to grip this gun properly and shoot it well. But once you get past that, or you put a hook grip sleeve on it and you get it, you get it the way you need it to, it works very, very well. For example, in one mag that Hammer shot, he put 5 rounds almost through the same hole. Reloaded, next mag, of course, changed the grip a little bit and kind of scattered them around. So it's one of those where you're going to have to spend some time with this at the range and figure out just the right grip for you, for the gun, the right trigger pull. Once you do that, you'll be able to shoot it quite well. Let me show a few other guns that you might look at when you're considering this gun that would be in a similar territory. One of the guns would be the Springfield XDS 3.3 in 45 ACP. This is Springfield Armory's single stack offering in 45. The other thing you might be looking at is something like this Glock 30. Now this is a double stack, so it's going to be significantly larger and heavier, but I'll include it in here for comparison purposes because you might be able to easily find one of these at your local gun shop if you can't find a Kahr, and just picking it up and handling, you can get a rough idea what you're looking at. So we'll start with the Springfield and the Kahr. And if I line them up beaver tail to beaver tail, the slide lengths and overall lengths are very close. Close enough as to not make a real difference in the overall ability to conceal this gun. From a grip perspective, the Kahr has a taller grip, but it's important to note that the factory magazine in the XDS is 5+1. Factory magazine in the Kahr is 6+1, so there's your extra grip height. It is possible to get a 7-round mag for the XDS, which then would turn it around and make the XDS grip a hair taller. So when you get into grip heights, one of the things you look at is the magazine and the capacity. The only difference between the Kahr and the XDS, of course, is that you have the option of the shorter grip with the 5-round magazine, whereas with the Kahr, this is as short as it gets because it is kind of a full-length grip. Comparing it to the Glock, again you've got similar length concerns. You notice that the Glock is significantly longer, and the Glock is actually a little bit shorter with its stubby 10-round magazine. Now this is 10+1, but also keep in mind that's double stack, and you're going to pay for that in thickness. So I'm going to bring them together, and I'm going to bring the XDS into the middle of them here. And what you're going to find is that the Kahr is thicker than the XDS by a little bit, a couple 3 millimeters overall. Not a significant enough difference to make a choice between one or the other. Now you notice the Glock is significantly thicker than either one of them. Again, that's the double stack. So if you put the double stack out of the way and you look at just the single stack comparisons, what you're going to find is that they're close enough in overall size that it's really going to come down to the ergonomics, what feels good to you, what's available, pricing. The retail on the Kahr is somewhere in the $450 range. They can be routinely had for in the $350 range. So it's a relatively inexpensive, high quality, concealable 45. So if you're looking for something in this territory and you're wanting to get a nice thin single stack, fairly clean, easy to operate, look no further than the Kahr CW45. And if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, check us out on Facebook, and have a great day. Thank you.